What's up guys, Tom from Airsoft Headquarters here, and welcome back to another video. Today, this is going to be something very special. I had a friend that recently just got the Polarstar Kythera's mechanical systems, and I had the opportunity in order to install the Kythera as well as the Polarstar UGS. So, we have a fully mechanical system paired with the universal gas stock, which is going to look something like this. So, I'm not going to do an installation video. Instead, this is kind of just a disassembly, reassembly, kind of pointing out a couple of things along the way that should you decide to purchase either the Kythera or the UGS, that you should probably keep in mind for any sort of installations that you want to do, because this current build overall took me about 5-6 hours. Now that's including Kythera research, UGS research. So while I am a professional technician and I do have experience with HPA stuffs, this combo is something that's just brand new to me and kind of brand new to the airsoft market overall. So I did have to spend a little bit of time making sure that things work out in the way that I expect them to. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this apart and we're going to show you what's going on the inside. So this here is where the magic happens. We've got the Kythera engine, and then we have the UGS system. Yeah, UGS. Now this tank specifically is a 26-inch, so not something that is designed to work properly with the UGS, but it's the only tank that I have that is small enough that still has air after testing and installation, so that's why it was on there. Otherwise, this is kind of what you're looking at as far as the overall setup. Now, there's a couple of things that I'm sure you are questioning already. Don't worry, we're going to break it down. I'm going to show you what's what. All right, so first things first, here it is, the Polarstar Kythera all by itself. So this is their newest fully mechanical system. It does have a trigger sear assembly that is designed to be a little bit more realistic of trigger settings, so you can change it to be a more competition rifle base or a mil-spec style. So you do have a lot of customization when it comes to this. Overall, completely mechanical, no battery, no FCU required, no proprietary trigger contact system. So it's essentially just a ready-to-go drop-in kit. Polarstar did do a video a couple months ago, I think, 6 months ago, of just dropping this engine by itself into a gearbox and drop it into a gun and have it up and firing within 45 to 50 seconds. So it really is just a simple drop-in. Now, a couple of things to keep note on. The spring down here, in some cases, especially with the first batch, all came bent through shipping. Especially with this one, it did come bent, so I did have to flip it and then reinstall it with the unbent side sitting along the top of the solenoid there. There are 4 individual set screws that you need to install via disassembling the first block here and installing those in order to get the proper specs that you want. You're probably wondering what this guy is. Now this is going to be the re-engaging strap or string for that trigger assembly. So you notice I gotta pop it back in again, that when I pull this back, there was that click. That was this entire trigger assembly locking back into the forward position. So then all you have to do is, with the Airsoft gearbox trigger, it would push forward, brake, engage the nozzle, and then you would have your shot, and then automatically it would re-engage. However, if you are low on air, or if you just want to play with it like this, you do have to pull that string. I did put some heat shrink on here, quite a bit actually, since some of the wire here does fray based on the clamp here. So getting some heat shrink on there just to keep your fingers safe. And then just going through, and it was really laborious, kind of painstaking in order to set all of these. This actually did a little bit of a setback. I had to reset the spring, like I said, and get all of the set screws in place, and then I was able to get the nozzle to function properly. That was one of the holdups when I first installed this, so just so you guys know, get that spring to be straight, vertical, no bends in it, and then put your set screws in and adjust them to how you want. If you are using a gearbox that is going to work in conjunction with a UGS stock or anything similar from Polarstar or any other sort of brand, what you will need to do is you will need to take a giant cut away from the back of the gearbox shell itself and even cut away at the very back lip here. You have to do this in order to fit the nozzle attachment that would go attach the air into the Kythera, and show that to you in just a minute. So hopefully that makes sense, but just a big note, that's all got to get cut out. So I just went with a retro arms kind of blade trigger here. I think it looks cool, so we're just going to use that for installation. You just take your engine, drop it in like so. Since we are using a UGS, we also have this little short guy, which is going to be the line that runs from the UGS into the engine, which actually, back up a second before I go and install that. How the UGS is going to work is it sits on the end of the tank. I'm not going to screw it down all the way. Sits at the end of the tank like that. Sits on the very back of the receiver like so. So then your line sits inside of here, and that's what connects directly to the Kythera. Now, this piece of line right here is going to be a custom job that you have to do. This is not going to be cut to spec for your specific spec of rifle, nor the parts that you're going to be using. So what actually comes with the Kythera is going to be a standard black line like so. Now this is just one of the spare ones that I have here from a Polarstar jack. It is a little bit different as far as fitting here for the thread sizes, so you are going to have to be careful as far as which ones to pick up aftermarket. You can get Amps IGL or their enhanced grips that come with multiple colors on here. We really like these. The braids on here are really nice and thick. Don't overbend at all, so you don't create any sort of kinks. Really cool. Now this is set for the Kythera as far as that threading size. So if you were running a straight HPA line and reg, this is the one that you would want to pick up in whatever color combination you want. If you are running the UGS systems, you gotta do that custom cut. Now, you're gonna get the full length system, so you gotta find where you have to cut it with a razor blade, and then do that installation of the quick detach fitting for the UGS. I hope that makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and install it. This actually took 3 different tries in order to get the correct fitting. So you're going to mess up a couple times, probably. So making sure that you have that extra line available, because here are my screw ups. Too short, too long, and then that one's just right. So clamp that down, not too tight. Just drop that into the gearbox shell. Your rearming string goes through the motor hole on the very bottom of the gearbox, or you can attach it to the top of the charging handle. I've seen some recommendations for that. However, that was just a process I really didn't want to do, nor did the guy want to have me do that. So we're just going to do it right outside the bottom. So it's going to pull outside of the grip, or it's going to hang just outside of the grip. And then taking a second to install the gearbox screws. You don't need all of them, but keeping a majority of the screws so the gearbox shell holds tight is going to be the best option. All right. So now we have the gearbox and the Kythera installed in there. Pretty straightforward so far. And that's after a couple hours of putts around with it. So, next step is understanding the UGS. So, if you're using a sling plate, make sure that sits there. Now the trick is that this has to be 3/16 of an inch. So one of the tricks that Polarstar text showed was the 3/16 drill, making sure that it is 3/16 all around. I just had to shave a little bit off from the VFC spec, as well as drill out that hole there to go a little bit wider to fit the very neck of the UGS. Now, you've got your sling plate. You also have the crane stock plate that needs to sit here. And then you have the actual regulator of the UGS that sits with the adjustment tool downwards. So Polarstar faces upwards. And it's going to sit like so. Now it's designed to be a little loose. This little rotating collar is going to sit upwards away from the back of the receiver, because inside the box of the UGS comes several washers that would be installed there, as well as a bolt. And then through the back of the receiver, once that is installed there, that locks the UGS regulator, the crane stock adapter, and the sling plate to the back of the receiver. So it is all one solid piece. I've got that finger tight just for now, and then taking this collar that can then tighten down to finally tighten everything and sandwich it all together to be nice and tight. The trick is you tighten this one first on the inside of the receiver, and then you're going to tighten the outside. Otherwise, if you try to do this guy first, which I will demonstrate, say we go a little too tight on the UGS, we're actually pulling that regulator away from the receiver. And then if we tighten this, now the piece of the neck that was extended past the bolt now sits flush. And that is going to screw up the custom length of hosing that you measured out specifically from the Kythera to the UGS regulator. So making sure that you tighten the internal bolt before you tighten this neck collar is absolutely critical. Because I made that mistake once or twice. Maybe. Some of you professional guys are also noticing that I don't have the selector plate on the side of the gearbox here. I just decided to leave it out. I mean, that was just one of the personal decisions between myself and the guy that I'm installing this for, is that it really doesn't matter. He's got really good trigger discipline, so he can live with it. So now the trick of installing this into the receiver is you're going to take your bolt and then the number of washers that you are going to use to hold that UGS regulator in place in this position. Now, you need your receiver pin and you need your body pins. Those are in case, those are for assurance that the nozzle is going to line up correctly based on the spec of the receiver and the spec of the gearbox, which absolutely should be the same brand to make sure for correct fitment or alignment of the nozzle through that inner barrel. And then you can either choose to put your grip on, which I'm actually going to wait. But first, coffee break. The way I held that cup was really stupid. Right now, if you have line cut correctly for the UGS, you've got everything properly aligned here, you've got this to the correct spec, then you're going to install the sling plate first, the crane adapter, and then the UGS regulator here. Now this is the tricky part because you have to align the line, get that, in alignment with the regulator. And I actually have this twisted around. There we go. So pushing this down. It's not supposed to be impossible, but it is going to be a little bit tough. So all while doing that, pushing and aligning, getting stuff together, you're going to put those washers upwards and get that nut up with that neck in order to tighten the UGS regulator and sandwich all those parts down together. All right, so, and look at that right there. How professional does that look? That makes me happy because I did that, and that makes me happy. So then we are going to do, I mean, I'm just using big pair of pliers, so sure that's tight, and then screwing this down to where it is finger tight. And hopefully you have an armor's wrench, so you can tighten this down as well. But not too tight. You don't want to crank on it, otherwise you're going to break some of the threads. At least I'm assuming anyway. So I only go that tight, and that is going to hold in place very, very, very well. Now, from this point, regulator is installed. What you'll need to do is push this down, and then you have access to that regulator adjustment nozzle right there to adjust how much air is going into your engine system. So I have this set at 340 FPS. I don't know what that is with PSI, since this doesn't actually have a gauge for me to test. The Kythera, being completely mechanical, is reliant on that velocity adjustment to be the PSI adjustment back there. So the more air that is going through the regulator, the higher the velocity. The less air that's going through here, the lower the velocity. That's just how it's going to work. You are going to have adjustments as far as nozzle or dwell time. That is not something that we're really interested in trying out. So it is essentially set and ready to go. So we can take our tanks. Like I said, I currently only have the 26 available, since the 13 is out of air. And feeling some pressure. That is all the way down. We heard the pop of the engine working. Now from here, we can engage that mechanical arm. Ooh. Nozzle popped out. Heard the air pressurize. So it is working. Like I said, with that selector plate not being on inside the gearbox, that safety does not work. And being completely mechanical, full auto is not an option. So and then essentially it's good to go. It did not nearly take me as little as time as what I just showed you. It took me way longer, several hours, but it is essentially already set to go. So then we have, well, this one's 26, but if you have 13-inch tanks, you can fit a lot on your person. So if you are in the middle of the field, you run out of air, and you don't cycle the engine completely, what you can do is you can take the empty tank off, put the new one on. You will have to re-engage that mechanical arm, which is why you have it either out of the grip or attached to the charging handle, so you can rearm the trigger sear or assembly. Then you're good to go again. Inside of the Kythera box as well, you do have a couple of washers, some of the smaller ones that you can make the micro adjustments on. You also have a heavier spring, so if you are running a heavier PSI, you're going to need this in order to help assist the internal nozzle. So again, like I said, this entire system was brand new to me. I did not get any sort of formal training. I looked at all the same information that other people have had access to. I have just installed several HP systems of a variety of brands before here in the Airsoft Headquarters. So the staff member that purchased this trusted me to install this for him. So this is kind of just a video for you guys to say, hey, we know what we're doing here at the Airsoft Headquarters. We also got our hands on the newer product as well, and we have tried it out, and it is awesome. Both for installation, ease of installation, other than the couple of parts I told you about, as well as ease of use. Super, super solid. So then we have the 416 upper that goes on the 416 lower simply slides on just like a so. Slide that in place, and then everything is set and good to go. How awesome does that look? It's got the new mechanical Kythera installed inside of there, other than 13 cubic inch tank, which I don't have access for right now, but I think you guys get the idea. So adjusting velocity, that is the regulator or the adjustment tool down there to adjust the velocity of the rifle itself. Where are you at? All right. So out of 10 shots, max of 370, minimum of 364. That's a 6 FPS difference, which for HPA is really, really, really good, especially for a completely mechanical system. Let us crank it up as much as possible. Let's see what that does. Max of 461, minimum of 451. So that's a 10 FPS split. How awesome is that? Let's see how low we can go before we start to mess up with that nozzle. So I'm going to take this out real quick. We're going to zero this out. Open. $115. So as you saw, the nozzle stopped, so keep firing, nothing's going to happen. So at 115 PSI is when the nozzle is going to stop. So I have to re-engage the PSI or the open up the nozzle. I have to re-engage that nozzle, and now it's firing. Okay, so the nozzle travel is pretty good as well as far as speed. Let's see what the lowest it is shooting at. As low as 300. Now I saw it dip down as low as 295, but for like a 300 FPS gun, that's really quiet. And it still has some really good nozzle speed as well, as far as setting the next shot up. Overall, really happy with this setup. And we're actually going to crank this up and get it set for the Airsoft Arena for later today. Man, this is sweet. So, final thoughts is that this HPA system is really, really, really solid. I was not considering picking one of these up for myself for personal use, but in installing and testing it out here in the store, I am now considering it. Overall, really solid. I really like the trigger option that they have as far as making it a little bit more realistic compared to standard airsoft triggers, which are just spongy and soft, and they don't have a break like real stuff, like the real firearms. So just in testing it with other staff members here, they're either fans of it or they don't like it. So it's all going to come down to personal taste with that mechanical trigger assembly. I think it's really cool. I think it's a very awesome aspect that they implemented, and especially having that UGS stock here is it's growing on me just a little bit. Just a little bit. If I got to do another build, that'd be so awesome. Anyway, so this video is just for you guys to recognize that we have our hands on it. We have installed it. We've worked on them, at least I have at least. And so if you need help or any sort of assistance with installing one of these guys, either with that in-grip line or with any sort of air stock options, we would be able to assist you or do that installation for you here at the Airsoft Headquarters. And definitely consider picking up one of the Polarstar Kytheras. Super, super awesome. Very awesome. No FCU, no trigger board, no battery required. It's just all completely mechanical, which is super awesome if you want something that is reliable and can work in any weather condition. So with that, if you guys have any further questions, put them down in the comment section below. As always, like and subscribe, please. And check out the rest of our videos. You guys stay safe, take care, and I will see you in the next one.